Well, now it's time to crank things up a bit, I think. So I've been remarkably lucky with this crank. It seems to be an excellent order. There's the date code, 1979, February. This crank is in really good shape. Both ends are fine. Bottom end bearing is nice and smooth with no significant, I can't feel any up and down play in that at all. Same goes for the main bearings here. Now I could remove these and replace them, but these bearings are smooth. Turning our attention to the two halves of the crankcase, we can observe that this is just a plain hole where the main bearing goes on the PTO side. On the flywheel side, see in here we have a shoulder, and then this smaller diameter hole is where the oil seal will fit. So the crank shaft has to fit in this side first, and the bearing needs to be driven in all the way down to the shoulder. So the first thing to do is to get this in the oven. According to the factory manual, it needs to be heated to 130 degrees. And at that temperature, in theory, it would be possible just to push fit the crankshaft. So this is about to go into the oven. Okay, so I've preheated the crankcase half. It's sitting at about 92 degrees with this thermocouple attached underneath. So I'm just going to bring it up to 130 with a heat gun. Okay, that's up to temperature. Now let's put the crank in. Right, and then we just let this cool off. As this cools, I'll perhaps explain why I've just spun the clutch on temporarily. Just made it easier to lift and place into position. But also it prevents you from putting the crankshaft in the wrong way round in the heat of the moment, so to speak. You really wouldn't want to do that. Onto the bearing here, and hopefully this should pretty much... Dude, it's the wrong way. It's the wrong way round, you dummy. Well, anyway, let's turn our attention to the crankcase gasket. This is what was fitted to the saw. I believe it to be original. And it appears to be some kind of fibrous material, looking around the edges where it hasn't been compressed. It's very thin. Where it has been compressed in the middle, it has a thickness of 0.15 millimeters. I could perhaps make a new gasket out of, got some 0.2 millimeter Nomex paper here, which might make a gasket. But this stuff isn't particularly compressible. And given that this gasket is pretty intact, I'm inclined to reuse it, but with the addition of some sealant. I think I shall use some of this Loctite 5922 semi-setting sealant. old school. I apologise for the horrendous mess this tube is in, but the contents is good. Now for the other side. I'm just covering it with this label backing paper to stop it drying out too much. Getting the PTO side in place will require a little more care and attention. Not only do we have to get the bearing in place, but also we have these two locating dowels, and they're a pretty, not excessively tight, but quite a tight fit, and we don't have much time. As soon as the cold bearing hits the hot pocket, heat transfers pretty rapidly, and really it's got to go in place within a matter of seconds. It can of course be reheated, but we'd like to do it nicely if we can. So what I've done here is I've just put this disc in place here. The idea behind that being, once we get it into position here, put the spacing washer, and then we can wind the clutch on and use it as a sort of puller to pull it all down, whilst taking care that particularly this locating dowel is lined up. If this one's located properly, then the other one should follow suit nicely. So now I'm going to get the PTO side in the oven. I should also mention that I've just temporarily fitted the flywheel and put a long screw here just to block the flywheel, which means it doesn't just spin around when I'm putting the clutch on. Right, while the other half of the crankcase is warming up, I'm going to get the gasket into place. Here I'm just warming the PTO side off camera. Oh no, it's all going Pete Chong. Well, it's kind of gone on a little bit, but then I wasn't quick enough and it's got stuck. So on to plan B. We can gently pull it in using these screws and a bit more heat. Well, plan A didn't quite work out, but plan B was a winner, so wouldn't want to be doing it every day. But keeping the heat on in this area and gradually, gently tightening all the crankcase screws down evenly seems to have worked and drawn the two halves together nicely. And I never used more torque than you can apply using an Allen key like this, so I was pretty gentle with it. Now once it was all together, we end up with a bit of a tight bearing, and in accordance with the factory manual, just a light tap on this end with a block of wood in between was sufficient just to take that tightness out, and that was with this heated up here. So I'm pretty happy with the result. Crankshaft is very smooth, but with no discernible end float. I'll have to wait until we can do a pressure and vacuum test on the crankcase to know if this gasket has sealed properly. So I think the next things to be getting on with will be fitting the crankshaft oil seals and the cylinder, so we can do a pressure and vacuum test. And one more point to note, I waited until the crankcase had fully cooled down to room temperature before giving the screws a final torque. Anyway, I think that just about does it for this session. Next time it'll be oil seals, I think, to begin with. So I shall leave it there. Thanks for watching.